All right, good morning, everybody. How are you there? Jim DePalma here from Wales-Darby. Rob Clemens is with me today, backing me up, taking your questions. And Christiana Levine is in the back, running the board. Today we're doing SpacePak. This is for Meyer and Depew. So a couple of things to do first. Let's make sure you can hear us. So if you can, please type in on your questions that yes, you can hear, the audio is fine. And also on your screen, if you would go up to the top where it says webcam, click on webcam on the down arrow, excuse me, and click it and make it to the left. This puts me on the left-hand side of your screen, the PowerPoint on the other side of the screen. And you'll see 3 hash marks in between the 2 screens. And if you put your cursor there and click on that, you can expand and contract the PowerPoint screen to as big as you want to see, excuse me, or make me as large as you want to see, your choice. So I'll just wait for everybody to get that going. We had a little bit of a technical hiccup here, so we're just waiting for one screen to come on. Everybody can hear us, Rob? Did everybody type in audio is good?
All good.
All right. So what we wanted to do today, we were asked to do a presentation for you on SpacePak. We're just going to go over what we would normally use in our certification training. If you have questions that we are not addressing, please type them in. Rob will raise his hand. I'll see him, and he'll tell me what that question is, and we'll address it as best we can. All right. So I'm just waiting for one screen to come up so I can see what you guys see. Just give me a moment. Almost there. So is there anybody that's viewing this today who is brand new to SpacePak? And if you are, please type in yes, you are, or you all old veterans in the world of SpacePak. Anybody new, Rob, or
No responses yet.
no responses yet?
Not yet.
I'll take that as
I got a yes.
we do have somebody new. Okay. All right. So since we do have somebody new, we will make sure that we cover exactly what SpacePak is and what it does. All right. Okay, I am starting to see your screen. Great. All right. You know, Chris, the camera's kind of funny. No, we didn't move it. Interesting, huh? All right. Well, we're going to get going. All right, guys. Oh, and I need the... All right, thank you. Okay. So we've already trained you guys up. You're already in that 5-year warranty category. I believe you guys, Meyer and Depew as a company, are getting the leads. Okay. So we're all good there. For anybody who doesn't know, SpacePak is a big division of Mestech products, as you can see. And we represent Beacon Moore's SpacePak, the Sterling baseboard lines. All right. So we do a lot with Mestech. So what is SpacePak? This is small duct high velocity air conditioning. We're moving stuff around as I'm going here. And it is a heating and cooling. Yeah, I'm slightly cut off. Yeah. It is a heating and cooling system. And we do it with small ductwork. Our main plenum, 9-inch round. All right, that's what we want to use. We have our own plenum where it's sealed. So we put it together. We have leak-proof seals. And then our drops coming out of the plenum are 2-inch drops that you can snake through the building. So our claim to fame with SpacePak has always been that we could get air conditioning into areas that were difficult to do in the past because you would use all this ducting and you'd have to tear the house apart. But we don't have to do that with SpacePak. And we're doing more and more SpacePak in even new construction. So we do have roughing kits for you to do that. So SpacePak is going to be able to deliver heating and cooling in our systems. We have the ability to do hydronic heating. We have the ability to do heating via heat pump. My team is doing all kinds of goofy things around here. And it's a very quiet system if installed properly. And it gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to running the system. So what we can do here is our 9-inch plenum can replace what's traditionally a 21 by 9-inch piece of ducting, as you can see on the screen. I can move 6,000 BTUs through my 9-inch versus that 21 by 9. And then on my 2-inch drops, I can replace a 10 by 2, and that's 2,000 BTUs. So the ability to run the plenum and run the plenum in many configurations, and then take your 2-inch drops off of that to get into your rooms below and or above, makes SpacePak a good fit for you on a lot of retrofit jobs, but again, also new construction, so we don't take up as much space. The other difference with SpacePak is we are a high static system. I want you to think of SpacePak as a big balloon, and this balloon is under pressure, but it's a special balloon. And if I poke holes in the balloon doesn't pop, but I would have equal air pressure coming out of my balloon. And that's called static regain, and we're pressurizing our plenum, and that's what we're doing. So I should get the same airflow out of all of my drops. So you can see on 1.2 to 1.8 static versus half on conventional, and on 220 to 250 CFM versus 300 to 400 on conventional. So again, there's that balloon scenario. So this is what I use when I'm trying to explain to somebody what a SpacePak system is. I pressurize this balloon, I poke holes in it, but it doesn't pop. I get equal flow coming out of all the holes, all right? And that's what we do with our system. So the plenum has to be pressurized. So it's very important that we have no leaks in our plenum. We run our plenum properly. Our drops coming off our plenum are spaced properly, and we have our tubing coming off properly. We don't have any crazy bends or anything like that, which can create leaks, which can create noise and problems. So what we're talking about here with static regain, since I'm capped off at the end of my plenum, right, and we put the air through the plenum, what we should have is the same pressure from the front, whoops, back up, from the front, too fast on the clicks, as into the back of the plenum. And then I'll have equal flow rate coming out to my drops. All right, so there's our typical layout of our system. You can see we'll have high pressure in there, so we designed to 1.3 water column. And I can go into a lot of detail right here, right now. And what I want to make sure everybody understands is we go out to a lot of older SpacePak jobs. And if you're seeing that the older plenum, which was maybe a fiberboard, and maybe it was round, and it's quite old, and if you touch it, it may feel a little spongy, or maybe it's breaking down, that whole plenum should be replaced. Don't just replace a section of it, replace the whole plenum. We've had a couple of jobs out there where they only did some piecework to it, and it never works out well. Replace the plenum. Today's is 9-inch round, it's spiral steel, and we have sealed gaskets. So when you put that together, it is a tight seal, it is not going to leak, and it's going to tremendously change how the system performs, okay? So that's what we want to call out here. All right, so you can see our high velocity that's coming out, all right? And what we want to attain is at least 30 CFM an outlet. 37 CFM is quite attainable. And what will happen is if we start to add more and more outlets based on the length of the 2-inch drop coming off the plenum to get to the room, okay? Then we have to make sure we've got proper placement in the room, and we'll need to do that to keep the CFM up. So what am I talking about there? Basically, if we go over 15 feet, we start to lose CFM on those 2-inch drops. So on occasion, we will see a room that's far away from the plenum. Could take 40 to 50 feet of 2-inch drops to get there. You did your calculations, and your calculation said you only needed 2 drops. But in reality, you're losing 5% for every additional, I believe it is 10 feet. So now those two outlets may have to be bumped up to 4, possibly 5, because of the length of the 2-inch runs to get there. That could be a problem because that room is so far away, you may have all your drops, all your outlets in the room in one location. Kind of looks a little strange, and I don't want to create a lot of noise if I have all my outlets in one location. And it also may be different. It also may cause a very strange way of blowing the air into that room. I've seen some where they're like right over the bed or right over one corner blowing across into that bedroom. Not a good application. So we do want to be cognizant of that. We want to try to run as much plenum as we can, get it as close to our rooms as possible, so we run the least amount of 2-inch drops. Okay, so when we do set up the system, or let's say you change the old air handler, because we've got plenty of systems out there now where we've been changing air handlers because they're 20, 25 years old. 18 inches off that blowers, we want to take our pressure test, right, our static pressure test, and that's where you check that. Now, older systems we balance by adding all these extra drops. Newer systems today we can balance right at the air handler. You have to follow the instructions in order to do that. What's nice about our system is how we move the air through these rooms. A conventional system, you're going to have a supply and return in a room. In the world of SpacePak, we just have our 2-inch outlet. All right, we have one central return. I don't need a return per room. We are going to move the air via aspiration. So there's going to be a column of air blowing out of that outlet at high speed, which is going to create a vacuum around it, and the air around it will now get blended in. This is called aspiration. So because of that, I can have my outlets coming from the ceiling, coming from the wall, coming from the floor. That column of air and aspiration will work in any one of those configurations. So that gives us a nice blend in the room that allows us to actually pull more humidity out of the rooms, where that's our claim to fame, a higher set point temperature, but drier. So 30% more humidity control. And there'll be less than a 2-degree temperature differential, as you can see on the screen, between the floor and the ceiling. All right, so that's a big deal. That is a big deal. So that's really our claim to fame in how we move the air. So you want to be aware when you're looking at a room or looking at a home and putting a SpacePak system in, where do I put those outlets? Because that column of air is a pretty strong column of air. So I don't want to put it where I'm going to be blowing directly on someone or on something. You know, so if the big tall plant is flapping around in the room, that's not a good place for the outlet, or we have to move the plant. But if I'm blowing it right on top of Mr. Smith where he sits in this lazy boy, probably not a good idea. So we try to get our outlets as best as we can in the corners of the room where nobody will be standing. All right. If we are coming up from the floor, again, we want to try to get in the corners as best we can. I've seen some wacky jobs where in the kitchen, right in front of the sink, there's an outlet where somebody would be standing. Could be kind of interesting on a hot day. All right, so be careful of that. And when we are coming from the floor, from the walls, get it up high around ceiling height so we're blowing across that way. Okay. So it'll work in any configuration, like I said. All right, so it's up to you to figure out how that is going to be. Now, if you're thinking, well, what do I get out of these outlets when it comes to heating and cooling? You basically are getting 2,000 BTUs out of each outlet when it comes to cooling, 3,000 BTUs out of each outlet when it comes to heating. All right, so depending on what this system is going to be doing, if it is primary heat and cool, more than likely your heating load will be higher, so you'll have to size your outlets and the amount of drops per room based on that design. If it's just going to be cooling, then you know how many outlets you'll need per room based on that load per room, 2,000 BTUs, and you can size your outlets accordingly. So if you come up with something that's 1.5 or 2.5 outlets, you always have to bump it up. So there is no such thing as a 1.5 outlet. That would be 2, a 2.5 would be 3, and so on. So we are in our J series now when it comes to our air handler. And we've got ECM motors in there now. We've got a different control board in there now. Setup for it is much easier than in the past. Look is kind of the same. The spacing is all exactly the same. So yeah, we could cut a hole and put it up between the joists to get it up into the attic. All right, none of that has changed. Okay, So there would be the location of our air handler in the system, okay? And you can see we come still in 2 to 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4 and 5 tons, available horizontal and vertical. We also have a hot or chiller coil that you can add to the system. So you can add hydronic heat, or you can, if you have a chiller outside, because SpacePak does have chillers, you can have cooling with chilled water also. So our specifications are, as you can see here on the screen, so nothing's changed in our size or anything like that, or our CFM. So everything is still the same. The coil is still 6 rows deep, as you can see, nothing's changed there. We still have a TXV. It's a Chatlet GXV. We got a TXV. We have a screenshot on that coming up, a little bit more detail. Okay, and you can see with 13 plus SEER. So a question even came up last week, does it matter, my outdoor unit's going to be a really high SEER, does that add any value to the system? And the answer is no. Your standard SEER rating equipment will work fine with SpacePak. We are not affected by any codes or anything like that where the efficiencies have to be very high. It's a different type of system. It's not conventional, nor is it a split system. All right, so here's our horizontal hydronic coil. All right, so you can get it this way if you want to use Hydronics. I said horizontal, yeah, hydronic coil. Well, I'm sure if that came out right. So you can see the specs on that. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. It should look familiar to a lot of you here. All right, there's our dimensions. All right, nothing's really changed there. And we can also get it as a vertical fan coil. Okay. So no changing it out in the field like we could do in the past. You have to buy it as needed. And there's the specs for our vertical dimension. Here's our control board. This is the J series. And here are the call outs on the board, which is really kind of cool. So we've added a lot more features you can see. So we have a digital display. So that'll give you our operating mode. It'll tell you the CFM, percentage of speed, and your static pressure. We control the speed of the blower by the static pressure tap on the blower, as you can see. Much easier wiring, there's less components. All right, it's an ECM motor, so it's easy to balance out the system now. We're pretty far away from the days where we had to add extra outlets and dump into an attic or dump into a hallway to balance the system. We can do it now at the blower. So here are the call outs right on the control. So you can see where the fan harness comes in. We have a jumper on there that if you install it, as you can see there, let me highlight it. As you can see right there, we can run this at 120 volts if we wanted to. There's our pressure transducer. This is our sensors here that will sense the air that's leaving. Okay. Here's the blower control harness, as you can see. And then here's our up and down buttons where we can change our settings on the screen. So we have here's our call outs here for our stats. So you can see this, the common terminals that you guys would be dealing with. There's the call outs for the HVAC side of things. All right, where you can put a humidifier where it's going to open, and float switches, humidistats. If you're going to add an ERV, where we can do that, and defrost from the outdoor heat pump. So we're still doing that DX coil. It's still a 6-row coil. And because of that, this is how we get that 30% more moisture removal from our system. So again, the claim to fame with SpacePak is, especially in cooling, 75 will feel more like 72. So 77 will feel more like 74, 75. Right? So they can have an actually higher set point, but it'll be much drier in their home. Right? Any questions so far, Rob? Anybody?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet? Okay. All right, so our TXV, this is what it used to look like. This is what it's looking like now. All right, this is our Chatlet TXV. All right, so there's no internal check valves in there, and we can use it for air-to-air heat pump applications. We want you to use the trap assembly for condensate. We supply it. Use ours. If you don't, you're going to have an issue there out in the field. So make sure you have all those materials when you are installing the job. Okay. Don't just prefab it yourself with common items you have. Use what we have because it's critical to the operation of the system. If this is not right, what we have seen is the motor, the fan is powerful enough to actually pull up that condensate and basically blow it all through the cabinet. So if you show up to a job and there's all kinds of rust in the cabinet and a lot of water, it's probably the issue right here with this condensate trap. It's not to our specifications and it needs to be. So don't skimp here. This is very, very important. If you need to bump up or add heating to our product, we can do it in either a hydronic coil or electrical, if you wanted to, electrical coils. So we have duct heaters available for you, as you can see here in those 6 sizes, 2 kW, 5, 7.5, 10, 15, and 20 kW, if you want to go with electric. It's more popular around these parts where we use the hydronic coil. Be aware where this coil is going to be. If there's a chance that coil could freeze, you're going to have glycol. So you see that we do have correction factors on there for glycol. That will affect the pump head. So if you're confused about that, we're the Takeo guys. We can help you figure out the pump head. So you can see based on GPM and entering water temperature, how many BTUs you'll get out of this. So it's very important, gentlemen, in anything you're doing in the world of SpacePak or in hydronics or in cooling, block loads just aren't good enough. We do need a room by room. So then we know our total BTUs. This way we can figure out how many outlets we'll need per room. And then if I'm going to size the coil, what size coil I'm going to need and what GPM I'm going to need. All right. Real important too when you're sizing this out, if you're going with GPM, that if you are not going to go with copper, if you're going to go with PEX pipe, that you size that properly. Inside diameter of PEX is smaller than copper. All right. So if we have to move, let's say, what are we looking at here? This means a little small for me. Let's say I got to move 8 GPM. Doing that in PEX pipe, I mean, in copper, you would think 1 inch copper, that's going to be 1.25 PEX. All right, so if you're in that 3/4 range of 4 GPM copper, that's really going to be 1 inch PEX. So be aware of that. You don't want to pre-run your lines and then realize you have to change that later. Okay, so here's our hot water coil installation. As you can see, there's your nominal input. Okay, there's the coil numbers. Water in, water out, pretty simple. Again, always make sure that if it could be in a freeze up condition that you treat that properly. So the coil is on the return side of our air handler. So here we're showing you in a horizontal fashion or in a vertical fashion. So it comes back on the return side. We do have these base pans for you for our horizontal coils. All right, we've changed the material, so it's not going to rust. It's a polyethylene. It's resistant to mold. All right, it's going to support the unit, but the unit's really supported by threaded rod. I misspoke there. Be aware of that. This is not there to support the unit. So here's a spec here to show you how that drain pan is installed. All right, you can see on my return, there's my hydronic coil, and my drain pan is on the bottom. I almost said brain pan, Rob. I really need coffee. All right, so here's my return. Now in our world of returns, it's going to be smaller than what you used to, but it's not based on volume what you're used to. And you don't have to worry about, you can never have too much return. And we get a lot of jobs where it is open to the second floor. So you may have that foyer that's open up all the way up through the second floor. And guys will ask me all the time, can I do 2 returns? Not a problem. You can do 2 returns. You can never have too much return air here, so it's not an issue. But you want to use our return box, and if possible, use our filters. So it's air mixing versus air change. So it's less return air volume. Okay. So we are cooling by temperature, not by volume. 1 central return is going to do you fine. All right, but again, if you want to add more, you can. So we want to size it in each location for less than 500 feet per minute. Okay. We want to locate it. What does that say? Size return in each location for a total of 0.25 static and less, including the filter. Install at least 1 90-degree elbow. This is important because this is going to drop the noise. Okay. So don't just have that return that we give you kind of wrapped up in one straight horizontal configuration. We do want to have a 90-degree bend in there. The return box got to be lined with sound attenuating material, also for noise, okay? And obviously we want to keep it clean, okay? So what does it say there on that note? If return creates too much suction over 0.5 inches water column, this suggests a lack of return air and creates a potential to cause issues with proper condensate draining, resulting in faults or water damage. So make sure you get your return proper. What are we showing you here? The minimum length here. So 15 inches if I'm at 24 or 2.5 ton, 3.5 to 4, you can see 19 to 24 inches, okay? A max of 120 inches or 10 feet. So no larger than that, and there's your minimums, 4 feet of ducting here. Any questions on that? Kind of feels like a speed date, but this is just what we do in the world of SpacePak. So where can it be located? You know, wherever it is convenient. All right, so you can get creative with this equipment. Again, we're doing a lot more of new construction. So when it's in a new construction, then you can really set it up properly or where you feel would be a good thing. So in this picture here, it's a 30 by 30. All right, and that's for 5-ton heating and cooling. So we can have multiple returns. All right, so if you take a look on this, and gentlemen, you can take a screenshot of this if there's any information that you see here that you want to save. You can take a screenshot and that'll save it to your computer. All right, so here we're showing you if you have 2 returns, the size of the ducting and the length of it based on tonnage, as we're calling out here. So here's a picture of multiple returns on a project here. This happens to be a chiller job, what you're seeing here on the screen. That's a buffer tank right here. There's our horizontal air handler. And here's our multiple returns coming back here. All right. You do have some indoor air quality options available to you where we can use an HRV or an ERV if that is needed for your job. It can be done. All right. There's our typical configuration for that. All right. But make sure we're going to maintain the proper amount of return air. I know guys are getting to thicker filters. Everybody's worried about COVID and things like that. So we're trying to get it down to the tiniest little microns it can get. But we have to make sure that we're going to have enough return air in there. Main trunk. All right. We want you to use the 9-inch round. If you can't, or if you have duct work available or you have a metal shop, you can do the equivalent of, that's not a problem. As long as it's the equivalent of 64 square inches, we're good to go. But what's nice about our 9-inch spiral round ductwork is that it has seals, gaskets on it. So when we put it together, it's a sealed connection and it's not going to leak. All right, so you want to take advantage of that. And here's where you want to be the most profitable, gentlemen, is you want to run the most plenum that you can. The more plenum that I run to get as close as I can to the rooms before my drops is going to save you time. It's going to save you money. And a lot of my SpacePak installers will pre-drill, prefab their plenum outside before they bring it in. So they'll drill their holes outside before they add their 2-inch outlets. So they've planned it out, they've sketched it out, they know what they're going to do. And when they bring that plenum into the attic space, it's a much faster install. All right, so this is what I'm talking about here. This is our 9-inch round. You can see our gaskets right here. So when we put that together, you're going to get a nice tight seal. A day or two ago, I had a call about somebody trying to make an elbow connection right here to our coupling, and we can't do that. We got a gasket to a gasket. So really, he was just kind of confused there. So from his elbow, he had to run a piece of plenum and then go into his coupling to do whatever he was planning on doing, right? So more plenum costs you less money versus the 2-inch drops. So plenum requirements, make sure that we balance our system, that we have at least 50-50, 60-40, all right, things of that nature. Round, rectangular, or square will work. Again, as long as I got 64 square inches equivalent, I'm good to go, okay? So any of these configurations will work. The main number to remember is 64 square inches. As long as I got that, I'm good to go. Right? So use all of our equipment. You can see the operating range. You can see the gaskets. All right. It makes a much more robust system. I don't have to worry about leaks. A lot of older systems we see have leaks. You see a lot of duct tape that over the years eventually starts to peel off. All right. Not good connections where the 2-inch drops came. We're leaking air all the time, and the homeowner, isn't quite pleased with the system. So you want to make sure you're using this type of product. Really is going to work quite well. All right, so again, I'm calling out the gasket because this really makes a huge difference here. It keeps contaminants out and keeps the pressure high in the plenum. So we can use any type of configuration we want. These are the most common ones we see when we run our system. The shotgun is the most common. You can see that we're coming off of the air handler, and we're trying to get our plenum to the edges of that attic space so we can make our drops. All right, we can do the horseshoe, which is another very common. Side branch is also very common. And here's going to be a 60-40 split. All right. If you wanted to do any zoning on a side branch, you'd have to have your zone damper here. If you wanted to do something like that, all right, we couldn't have our damper there. All right. And the perimeter loop, if you can really do a perimeter loop, now you've got a pressurized system. You should have equal airflow coming out of all the drops. All right. So try to figure getting your plenum out there as close to the rooms. I can't stress that enough. If everything's always down in the center, then my 2-inch drops get longer. And now there's the chance I may have to add more drops because of length of run to those rooms. Okay. So always run more plenum. So you can never have 60% takeoffs on one side of the T, and you never have more than 30% takeoffs on a side branch. Right? We can reduce the size of the plenum, as it says right there, by one size after a T or a side branch if tonnage and outputs allow. So if the majority of my output is on one side and I have a T, then I can reduce after that. We've been asked on older systems that maybe had the 7-inch type plenum, can I just adapt my J series currently to that? And the answer is yes, but you have to come off of our current air handler with 9-inch. You have to come off with 9-inch and make it an ample amount of 9-inch plenum as much as you can before you adapt to the smaller size. It's always best practice to really abandon the old plenum and just run new. All right, the 9-inch 64 square inch is really your best plenum design. So I can go up to 250 feet if 9-inch. All right, if all the fittings are nice long radius, as you can see, everything is steeled. So if you're using our spiral vent, that's what you want to do. We end up reducing if we put a lot of elbows and T's in. So for every T that's worth 30 feet and every elbow is worth 15 feet. Here's where we see issues out in the field. All right, we have 18 inches from the blower, 18 inches from the outlet of the blower before a 2-inch takeoff. Sometimes we'll see systems installed where that is too close. That causes a problem. All right, we want to stay 18 inches from the end, from a fitting before a 2-inch takeoff. I'm sorry, I misspoke. So 18 inches from the fitting before the 2-inch takeoff, 18 inches from the end cap before a 2-inch takeoff. I've been on jobs where here's my end cap and there's a drop right there. No bueno. It's not good. Got to be 18 inches away. And then here's the biggest one, 6 inches off center from your takeoffs. Okay, so here I got a 2-inch takeoff, here I got a 2-inch takeoff, 6 inches on center. That's my minimum. And we still see jobs where they're almost on top of each other. Okay, not good, guys, not good. So if you're retrofitting a system, changing out that old air handler, and you see that the plenum's got, a lot of holes in it. Some holes were taped off because, the drops were too close. So they literally just tape them off with duct tape and then drill a new hole. You may want to, change that plenum up. But these are the things you need to be aware of on the install and on the layout. At 6 inches on center between your drops is very, very important. Right? We don't want them any closer. All right. So there's a drawing of it to show you what we're talking about. 18 inches from the blower, 6 inches off center between my drops, and 18 inches away from the end of the plenum is your last drop. Any questions on that, gentlemen? We're killing them, huh, Rob?
Killing them.
Killing them.
No questions right now.
All right.
Great job, Jimmy.
I don't think so. So here's my shotgun approach. So maybe I got my fan coil maybe in the middle of the attic here, and then I'm coming off, and then I'm hitting my elbow, and I'm trying to get my plenum to the edge of the attic space as much as I can and bring it back before I take my drops off. Horseshoe, I'm going to have that type of line up this way, 18 inches minimum before I hit my T, and never any outlets on that part of the plenum. So all outlets are going to happen after that T and after those elbows. Okay. No more than 60% capacity on one side. 50-50 is best. 60-40 is acceptable. 70-30, again, no bueno. We can't do that. Not a good thing. Side branch is very popular. 18 inches minimum again before we hit our T. No outlets in that area. All right, 30% capacity here and 70 here is allowable. That would work for you. All right, and in this picture here is where we have an example of a side branch T. Again, that's a chiller system, by the way. That's a really cool, nice install. Another very popular install is this way. So again, 18 inches minimum coming off of the air handler before we hit the plenum. And we have no outlets there. And then we start to have our drops coming off, as you can see. 50-50 split is the best. 60-40 will work. Okay. That's what we want to see out in the field. All right. Here's another layout. So again, you can be very creative with this, but you want to stay within our rules, right? Follow the rules here. So this is a shotgun layout with a T. Okay. So remember how much space that T takes up in length of run on your plenum. There's another popular one here, and here you can think of it as two systems. All right, so here is it's basically a 60-40 on each side here. So you can treat it as a separate system. All right, so there's a 60-40 split on one side and on the other side too. Now, if I was going to put any dampers in here, by the way, gents, you know, my dampers are going to be down here and over here. And here, a nice 50-50 split. Oh, these pop up. Here we go. And here, my perimeter loop, everything is equal drops, equal pressure going to my drops. Works out really, really well. Any questions on that at all? Just moving back and forth. Because this is a very, very popular install here, as is this one here. Nothing, Rob? Yeah, no, my own Diffuser's been doing SpacePak for a long, long time, so this, excuse me, should look very familiar to everybody that's in the room. Okay, so don't do the following. Don't do things like this. All right, and on occasion we do see these things out here, and if you guys are going in to fix what somebody else did, you know, stuff like this can cause you a big problem. All right, don't do the following. You can see the return there is all scrunched up, and it looks like there's a drop coming from it. I have no idea what that is, but obviously we don't want to see anything like that. Okay, even here, sorry guys, right? All this type of plenum here is kind of all scrunched up and everything. Let's not do that, guys. Okay, obviously we don't want to do things like this. We don't want to run any plenum outdoors, but you guys know what you're talking about. All right, so can we run a smaller duct size? All right, retrofitting to that existing 7-inch. I kind of alluded to that earlier. All right, you have to replace, what does it say? Please replace as much of the existing accessible 7-inch with preferred 9-inch. This is even more important in systems over 2 ton because we're moving so much air at a high speed, which is going to cause us a problem. So depending on what we're doing, the first 18 inches is minimum, always has to be 9-inch. Then what we're showing you here, I got 40% of the outlets coming off, and then I can bring it down, all right? But I don't see this working out well in a lot of jobs, and if it's older like this, generally that 7-inch plenum, if it was the fiberboard, has already started to break down. If we're going into a horseshoe outlet in that regard, again, I've got my minimum of 18 inches at 9-inch, that 9-inch T, the 9-inch elbows is what you're going to use, and then you would be breaking into that 7-inch plenum, okay? Try to make it all 9-inch as best as possible. Side branch system, same thing, coming off of my air handler with that minimum 18 inches of 9-inch. The T's got to be 9-inch, and then we can break into the 7 inches there. Now our takeoffs, again, 6 inches on center, no closer. And also try not to have, if this is my plenum run here, have my takeoffs coming up from the top and then bending over and coming out. Take them out to the side, all right? We don't want all these bends. Just adding extra length that you don't need is just going to cut down on the CFM. So again, that's what we want to do. 18 inches off of the blower before my first outlet, 6 inches on center, 18 inches away from the end cap. Can't stress that enough. All right, so if you've never done this before, you need a 2 1/8-inch hole saw. And then we snap our coupling on there, and you use those reverse pliers to snap them into place. Don't use your thumbs, you're going to kill yourself. All right, you guys have a lot of experience with this. This should look very normal to you. All right, so the reverse pliers are a big deal. You have the retainer clips, that's what's going to snap them into place and make that good seal. So in our takeoff kits, we give you the gasketing, so we have it for either a flat surface or a round surface. I've been told that even if you had a flat surface takeoff on a round, if you double gasket, that would work, but always try to use the proper kit that we need. All right, so our rules here when it comes to our tubing, all right, there's our tubing in R6 and R8 and the length of what comes in the box. Local code's going to decide whatever you guys need when it comes to our value. You're going to use that tubing. You're going to slide it through your attic space. You're going to slide it down the walls. We want to try to grab closets and corners so we can go from attic through second floor to get down to first floor. So try to find closets that allow you that path down to the first floor. So how many outlets per ton? I've been doing this for 30 years with SpacePak, and it's always a moving target. So it's 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Gentlemen, I'm picking 7 outlets per ton. That seems to always be what it averages out. So you can see 6 to 7 outlets minimum per ton on AC only. Go with 7, all right? Let me see, if we're doing 7 to 8 outlets minimum per ton on heat pump system. All right, so again, 7 seems to be that number. Again, 2,000 BTUs on the cooling side, 3,000 BTUs on the heating side. And again, that's if we're moving 37 CFM. The longer you make those runs, the more less CFM you're going to be able to deliver, and then the more outlets you're going to need per room. So we need to do those calculations. When we do our run, the maximum length of the duct run, 9 feet to 15, and this includes a 3-inch sound attenuated tubing, which you do need at the end. Otherwise, it's going to sound very, very loud. Okay. So here's what we want to do. We want to stay within that 9 to 15 feet. Shorter runs at 9 feet are better. All right, we could use balancing those duct balancing orifices. We try to stay away from that because that could make some noise. So if you just want to run, if it's going to be a really short run, maybe just coil it up and come in, because those balancing orifices don't like them. They can make some noise. So it's the 10% rule after 15 feet, and this is really important. You're going to lose 10% for every additional 5 in CFMs and BTUs. So again, If you're looking at a job and you're trying to do SpacePak, and I got a 50-foot run to get to this room with my 2-inch outlets, and by calculations, I only need 2 outlets, you may now need up to 4, 5, possibly 6, depending on what you're trying to deliver there. And now I got to get all those outlets in that room. And a lot of times I'm only coming into that room in one little corner. Doesn't look too good. So possibly you don't use that room in the SpacePak. Maybe you use it as a mini split room or something. But these are the rules you have to adhere to. It's very, very important. And a lot of times we'll go out to a job that one area of the system isn't heating or cooling well. Generally, it's not cooling well. And that's because we're way too long on our 2-inch drops. And the installing contractor didn't take that into account, didn't follow the 10% rule, didn't run the extra 2-inch lines to get enough CFM and BTUs out there. Any questions on this? Because this is important. Loose for you, right, Robbie? On 10% rule?
No,
You knew that? When did you know that?
you told me.
I did, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
All right.
Yeah, no question.
Okay, very good. So here's our quick connect. So when we make those connections, is the quick connects that we're going to go from our plenum, run our 2-inch, and then our sound attenuating tubing is going to click into that. And then we have our puck or our escutcheon plate, if you want to call it, sticking out or covering at the ceiling, wall, or floor. Okay, it's aluminum tubing. It's very easy to cut and bend and do whatever you have to do. You guys have a lot of experience with this. I really don't have to go into a tremendous amount of detail. We do have pre-made elbows, 90-degree elbows. So if I'm coming down a wall and I need to come out, I don't have to worry about bending the tubing, kinking the tubing. We do have pre-made elbows with a quick connect on either side, so you can snap it to your tubing and then have your outlet snapped on the other side. Okay. So you give it a little screw and you put it in there, a little turn, right? Don't over tighten it, then pull the insulation down and tuck it in, right? You must finish each 2-inch drop with the 3-foot sound attenuating tubing must be there. It's going to reduce noise dramatically, make for a nice quiet system. Has to be there, and this is included in that total length of run. So here we're showing you 6 outlets per ton. All right, you can notice how the CFM stays nice and high. All right, so if I'm at 2 ton, we're talking 12, 2.5, 15, and so on and so forth. When I go to 10 outlets per ton, you can see now I'm up to 20 outlets on a 2 ton. Now my CFM is going to drop to 22 CFM. All right, so just be aware of these things when you're designing your systems. All right, so based on the length of the tubing and the pressure in the plenum, we have charts like this available. You may want to take a screenshot of this if you don't have it. And it shows you based on the length of the 2-inch drop and that static pressure, what is my CFM going to be? All right, so the longer those runs and as the pressure drops, you can see the CFM drops too. So when I'm delivering those low CFMs, on longer runs, I'm going to need more drops. Okay, so a little reminder here, again, of what we're talking about when it comes to placement of our drops on the plenum. So the installation kits, right? This is right off of the price sheet. So if you have our list price book for the sales guys that are in the room, in the back of our list price catalog or list price book, you'll see a typical layout based on tonnage and what you plan to do with that SpacePak system. And it'll list all the different items that you'll need on a typical install. If you're going to need more, then you need to order more. But this is your installation kits and it shows you what you're getting in the box, right? Based on your sound attenuating tubing, takeoffs, and what have you. Again, balancing orifices, we have them. We try not to use them. All right, they do have a tendency to be noisy. Okay, so, but if you're running it to a small room and you got to get some conditioning in there, and even one outlet could be too big, then that's probably where you're going to use one of the balancing orifices. Since it comes with it, doesn't mean you have to use them. Sometimes we got jobs that have some issues and they put them in and they didn't even realize they didn't need to put them in, okay? And we never install them here. So when I first started getting involved with SpacePak and we had problem jobs, this is where we would see them, all right? And this is the reason why. So this is where you don't want to install them here. You want to install them, as it says right here, only be installed at the plenum and only used for balancing or BTU reduction. Don't use that as a screen, especially if it's a floor type of install, because you want to keep little Johnny from putting his marbles or whatever down into the tubing. Or little Anthony. Kid's a terror, all right? So now we're going to get into our outlets. Again, we can orient them in all these different fashions, horizontal, vertical, all right, from the floor and or the ceiling. Placement's important. Put them in an area where that column of air is not going to disturb anybody. All right, so corner of the rooms behind door swings are really ideal. Never put it where it's going to blow on somebody because the air can travel 15 plus feet. So again, if Mr. Smith sits in that corner in his lazy boy and you got it blowing right on top of him, not a good idea, all right? All right, so we don't want to have curtains moving around. We don't want to block an outlet. So if you know there's going to be some furniture or obstacles in the way, you need to get that room, that air blowing in a column fashion into that room. So be aware of that. This is probably the hardest part of figuring out where to put your outlets, right? So we don't have any blockages, all right? At least 6 inches from the center of an outlet to the wall, right? We can do ceilings or sidewalls, floors, all okay. It'll work anywhere. Again, placement's just critical. So yeah, I got my total load for the job, but I need to know my load on a room by room basis so I have the proper amount of outlets per room. This is where you can get in trouble if you're not doing it right. Again, run the most plenum you can, get as close as you can, so our 2-inch drops to the rooms are not going to be too long. And if we go longer than 15 feet, remember your 10% rule. And SpacePak does have pre-sale support. All right, so if you have a set of plans you want to send to them, they can help you design out the system. So here's a basic overview of the design. So the job was designed for $45,700 for heat, $2,730 for cooling. So at 3,000 BTU outlet rated full capacity for heat, I would need 15.2 outlets minimum. Cooling, I need 13.6 outlets minimum. So what would that look like if we were cooling only? Start filling in the blanks here. There we go. So I need 5,000 in the kitchen. We divide that by 2,000 BTUs, it's 2.5 outlets, so that's going to be 3, all right? Dining, bath, all right, dining gets 1, bath got 1, master bed 3, and so on and so forth. You can see that based on our load calculations, where the outlets are going to be, okay? So the cooling load's 27,300. That would be 13.65 outlets, that's going to be 14. All right, so we use a 2430 with the DX coil, 2.5 ton condenser, 30,000 BTUs requires 15 outlets. So if you have 16, you're good to go. Any questions on that?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
How does that office get 3 outlets?
How does it go up? Let's get 3 outlets. Well, who knows? I don't know how big the glass is, how tall the ceiling is. But that's the way that calculation worked out.
Okay.
It's an example. All right. Or he wants it really cold in there. All right. So
Really
same.
cold and clammy.
It's cold and clammy. All right. So same job here with a hydronic coil for heating. So there's the BTUs per kitchen. So it's 3.7 outlets. So that's going to be 4. There's my BTUs for cooling. It's 2.5. All right. So what's going to be 4 outlets. All right, and again, we do that on a room by room basis, is what you're seeing here. If you need help with this, you can contact us. We can help you out. Oh, back up. We can help you out, or SpacePak can help you out. All right. So again, it's the largest load here is our heating load at 45,700. BTUs. So that's 15.2 outlets. So again, here we'd use a 3642 with the coil for cooling. 16 outlets, so you'll have 19 basically, based on the total output of the system. So how would we now lay out the plenum? So same floor plan. So a shotgun design here works. Trying to get as much plenum in there as close as we can to the rooms. So that's what that would look like. Could we do it with a shotgun and a T? Yeah, we could, if we're going to put our air handler in this area. All right. Perimeter loop would be really cool because I have my central return location. As you can see as they're coming up. Oh, sorry, a little too fast on the clicks. That's the most plenum I could run in this configuration, and you can see my drops are nice and short. All right, so that's really quite cool. No extra balancing needed. Everything will work out quite nice. So if you could do something like this, this would be your best bet. Any questions on this type of design? Anything like that, Rob? Nothing? Nothing. Okay. All right, so we do have our standard outlets, the white outlet that we've had forever. You can get a wood finish if people want that. And the linear design has become quite popular for us too. Linear design looks well. You can kind of hide it in a room and it works out quite well. All right, so maybe when you're doing a standard sheetrock ceiling, it's a 4-inch hole saw. All right, well, I'm sorry. When installing a standard sheetrock ceiling, be sure to use a 4-inch hole saw. Other ceiling floor material may require a slightly different install process. My bad. Okay. So there we go. And, you know, for the guys in the room with a lot of experience, you know, show the guys that are new to this. You know, some guys put, I've seen guys take a basketball, cut it in half, and as they're drilling, you know, holes like this, you know, they're catching all the material so they're not making a big mess, less cleanup in the, on the job. All right. So there's my sound there's my clip that's going in there. My sound attenuator is going to be attached to the termination plate. All right, your reverse pliers clip it in. All right. So these are the quick connect wall elbows that I was telling you about. So we have them pre-made, so you don't have to worry about kinking the tubing, trying to bend that in a wall or a cavity yourself, which can create some velocity noise. The rough-in brackets are really kind of cool because now when we get more involved in new construction, you guys can have this stuff already roughed in during the construction process. All right. And then we have an extra quick connect extension if the wall thickness is going to be an extra 1/2 inch. So, you know, these are some jobs that we've done. You can see a lot of outlets in this open area here in this particular home. So if you take a look here, guys, you can see a lot of our outlets here across here and up here. So we're getting enough BTUs and air into that particular room. Here's another one, which is kind of cool, where we're using linear diffusers. So if you look closely, you'll see the linear diffusers right here up on the wall, poking through. All right.
Linear diffusers made by SpacePak?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
All right. Linear diffuser here in the ceiling. If you take a good look, you get it right there for you. Okay. Here in the hallway, you can see the outlets. Looks like they kind of staggered it, but one of them may be a light fixture. I'm not sure, but we're going down the hallway here. Okay. And here we're showing you, let's find them. I don't even see them.
Above windows.
Right by the windows, right there. So this particular job, they're trying to get it where everything was symmetrical in between the windows and what have you. Okay. Another picture here, we can see them at every single window location. Okay. You can be creative, gentlemen, and then here, as you look here, dark on this screen here, we can see all my outlets here. And here they built where they were laying out the kitchen, and with the cabinetry, a little soffit at the top so they can have their outlets blend in right there. All right. And then we do have the ability to do some spot heating and or cooling. This is what we're showing you here in a commercial application. I don't even need the 2-inch drops. So if this is a noisy, assembly area or what have you, I can just take some outlets right off of the plenum and use spot cooling. We've done that in some automotive dealerships in their garage areas, spot cooling. Some factory spaces where they were doing assembly work underneath, or even just shipping areas where they were packaging material. I was taken to a job for a large distribution center for Gucci, a huge building, and they're trying to get some conditioning where they were packing up the different products. And a SpacePak system is what they're entertaining, where we can just run plenum along those areas and then just have the drops where those people are working. All right, so you can get creative with this. All right, and again, another picture where we're showing you the same thing. And just to let you know, on occasion, I've had people ask, can I come off of the plenum with my 2-inch, but use a standard diffuser that we use in our conventional systems? And the answer is yes, you can, but you have to have a box built where it's at least, I believe, 4 inches deep. So when the air comes in, it has a chance to expand and go through that diffuser and not create any noise. So if that's something you're entertaining, give me a call, let us know, and we'll double check on what you're planning on doing. But I do believe about 4 inches deep, you'd have to make that box so you can spread that air out. All right, so zoning. We can zone with SpacePak. We can zone in our plenum with our dampers, or we can actually have a damper per 2-inch outlet if you choose to do that. All right. If you're doing anything with zone dampers, you must have at least a 2-stage outdoor unit. Your outdoor unit must be at least 2 stages. Okay. And as you can see here, do not under any circumstances, come on, where's my pointer? Use an air bypass of any configuration in the SpacePak system. Right. So you can see here in a multiple zone, small zone must be of the same size or larger output when the lowest turn down capacity of the compressor is being used. If the inverter compressor turns down to 12,000 BTU, that's 1 ton. Small zone on the system must be capable of handling the capacity of 1 ton. So again, if I'm going to zone in this type of configuration, think of it as 2 systems. So I've got a 60-40 on either side, and I'm thinking this is 2 systems. All right. So there would be my damper placement there and my damper placement over here. So it's kind of a speed date here. We did this in basically a little over an hour. What general type of SpacePak questions do you gentlemen have? You got nothing? All right. I do believe we gave you guys a download of the tips and tricks, which really is a basic reminder of plenum lengths, spacing of the 2-inch outlets, CFM that you lose if the outlets get longer, your 2-inch drops get longer than 15 feet, that type of information. So make sure you have that. If you want more copies of it, let us know. We can get it to Dan at Johnstone, and he can deliver them to you so everybody on your team has them. All right. We do have that pre-sales department at SpacePak. All right. So if you're looking at a job and you want some help in designing it out. They can help you. All right, this is where you go for that. You go to pre-sale support at spacepak.com. There's the phone number you can call for technical support at SpacePak. So take a screenshot of that. My cell phone number, if you need me, is 732-547-9304. Again, my name is Jim DePalma. You can also call our office, ask for Rob Clemens. He's with me today. He can help you with SpacePak. And John Resso, also here at Wales-Darby, can help you with SpacePak for any heating or cooling needs you may possibly have. So gentlemen, ask your questions. What could you possibly be running into that we didn't discuss today? What help can you what can we do to help you in selling the systems? What help do you need when it comes to retrofitting any systems? Crickets, Rob?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, everybody can get to work. It's 8:07 and we should be good to go. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And check in with us at Wales-Darby.com. Go to our training tab on Wales-Darby.com. You can see all the training classes that we've been doing, that we are doing right now. Right now, we are in the middle of a Jiu-Jitsu training series on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're going to start up our standard Wales-Darby training series again after this last season that we just did on Wednesdays in another week or so. And if you go click on our training tab, that'll take you to HVAC Insiders, where you can see all of the pre-recorded webinars that we've done. We've done hydronic webinars featuring TACO and NTI. We have done cooling and heating webinars when it comes to SpacePak and or Fujitsu, centrotherm venting, low voltage wiring. All that stuff is available to you, recorded, and you can watch at any time. And you can sign up for our existing trainings coming up. We have a question?
We have a question.
Oh, awesome.
One gentleman here wants to know, can you go over a startup?
Startup on SpacePak?
Startup on SpacePak.
What's to go over on the startup? I'm kind of confused.
Not sure, maybe ask him to be more specific, like anything in specifically about the startup process.
Well, you're going to want to follow the instructions when it comes to setting the fan speed, all right? The new J series control makes that easier. Again, we don't have to balance by adding all these different outlets. I don't have that right in front of me to go over it with you, but just following the instructions makes the control setup, which is basically what you're doing, pretty simple and easy to do. That's what you have to do. In the past, we had to measure our static, make an adjustment on a damper that was on the, you would connect to the outdoor, to the air handler if you were doing any zoning and things of that. It was a bit of a pain in the butt, but we don't have to do that today. Really, we set everything up at the J series. We do have to make sure that we are moving enough air across the coil so we don't freeze it up or not. You need to follow the instructions in the install manual, but it's based on the system design that you have there. So really, it's just following those instructions. Anybody else? Okay. Well, if that's what we are, if that's all we have, again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll see you in the future. Thank you very much.